The Smiling Friends is an ADHD-brained, irreverent, and sometimes scary adult animated TV show on Adult Swim. The show pushes the envelope with its mixed art styles, its variance between subdued and over-the-top jokes, finding comedy in the mundane and the fantastical. Chaos is a way to describe the show, while at the same time, the main characters are dependable and lovable. The show works within some serious limits as well, each episode being only 10 minutes long, and there being only 8 episodes a season, and not having a massive budget. Yet the show feels very fleshed out. With all of these overarching characteristics, and in comparison to adult animated shows of the past, The Smiling Friends creates a unique comedy style that we haven't seen before. The show also subtly shows us how our world has gotten a little darker and a little more dystopian since Family Guy. The Smiling Friends has a unique pedigree compared to most TV shows. Zach Hadel and Michael Cusack both got their starts making animations themselves on the internet. I'm a huge fan of YOLO and Hellbenders. The show's guests are mostly internet-based artists like Oni G, Salad Fingers, Joel Haver, and a bunch of others that I'm probably going over my head. The willingness to incorporate other artists into the show necessitates for the show to mix and match art styles that help add an additional level of chaos to the show. You have no idea who's going to walk through the door. Regular animation, 3D animation, claymation, pixel art, or even live action. Reality itself bends to fit the narrative. The show definitely feels like a psychedelic trip, which can be sometimes euphoric or a nightmare. A great characteristic to have for a show marketed to young college kids who could be on a substance while watching it. I think the show has other elements, though, that resonate with young, particularly, but not necessarily male audiences. The show likes to center itself around nostalgic elements that would specifically relate to a young adult. Whether it's a 3D platformer from the late 90s or a fast food chain that Charlie remembers, the show then makes the turn of showing that the nostalgia the character once had has now been tainted. A sentiment that many people who grew up in the 90s have. I think the continual disappointment that the characters experience, while not funny, endears them to their audience. The characters also struggle with real adult issues that usually aren't highlighted in a cartoon show. The clients of the Smiling Friends themselves, and many of the side characters flirt with mental health issues, being an incel, or extremism. All of these issues can come from isolation and obsessions with the internet, which is ironic considering the makers of the show, but it also makes sense that people who make content for the internet would also have a great perspective on the darker sides of the internet. These issues that are being highlighted on the show are pervasive. It doesn't matter if you're a smiling friend or a client, you struggle with these mental health issues. Whether you're suicidal like Desmond, can't get a girlfriend like the shrimp guy, anxiety that you'll never start a family like Pim, or you're a lazy slob like Charlie, or you have PTSD like Mr. Boss, or you're autistic like Alan. We all struggle with our problems. Some just need more help than others, which the show takes on something more bleak and makes it more uplifting. I guess that's the whole point of the Smiling Friends, but it's also a sign of how dystopian the Smiling Friends universe is. There's a government program that Mr. Boss runs just to help people be happier, which coincides with the comedic dynamic of the show. Pim and Charlie are the straight men for the show, one being an optimistic straight man, the other being a pessimistic straight man. The funny men are the characters around them, which is very different from other adult animated shows, specifically Family Guy, where it's a normal world for the most part and Peter wreaks havoc on it. I think this is an emblematic change in perspective on a generational level of the creators of these shows. Peter, and by extension Homer of The Simpsons, are postmodern boomers who don't know how good they have it and see the world around them as a playground for their zany antics, still riding off the prosperity of post-World War II America. The Smiling Friends is a postmodern comedy. I use the term postmodern because I don't think a label to describe this art has really been created yet, so I'm just going to call it postmodern comedy. The zaniness comes from the world around them, so much so that Charlie and Pim are traumatized by it. In one episode, Charlie curses the chaotic world they live in. The average person's quality of life is not so great, hence the need for the Smiling Friends. And even the government is in shambles, as shown in the election episode where a TV star, Mr. Frog, or you could say Trump, beats an incompetent, senile old man. I find this to be a very millennial Gen Z perspective, and the survival coping mechanisms for this world is to laugh at the absurdity of this decaying world we live in, because that is the only way to survive it and not get too depressed. Well, I guess if you ever get too depressed, you can always call up Pim and Charlie to help you smile. Thanks for listening to my analysis on The Smiling Friends. It would mean a lot if you wouldn't mind liking and subscribing to the channel. If you wouldn't mind considering supporting me on Patreon, it goes a long way to helping me make more of these videos. Thank you.